evening and welcome to the
Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the February 18th, 2026 Yarmouth Planning Board meeting. I am Joanne Crowley, Chair. Public is welcome to attend in person this evening or via alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. I'd like to begin by taking roll call. Susan Britta. Present. Deirdre Hagwin. Here. Tom Pendleton.
Here.
Will Rubenstein. Katie Slovak. Ken Smith.
Here.
Joanne Crowley, present. Seeing that we have a quorum present, I'll call the meeting to order, and I would ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening is the seasonal community designation. Kathy has provided in our packets several documents related to this legislation and the recent final regulations associated with it. Kathy's going to walk through part of the PowerPoint presentation that was given and her memo, and she's also provided us with some additional information on our existing non-conforming merged lots. So I'll turn it over to you, Kath.
I by no means am an expert on this, but I have gone to a couple seminars at this particular point. So this was the presentation that was given for the Cape Cod Seasonal Communities Info Session that was done on February 2nd, and it was done like 2 days before the final regulations were actually issued, so pretty close. This gives the contents of what they're looking at, the designation overview, the benefits, all of the requirements, the regulation update, which we already kind of know because we have the regulations, next steps, and resources and questions. So I think we all know that seasonal community designation came out of the Affordable Homes Act. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We were not automatically designated as a seasonal community. We didn't quite meet all of the thresholds with regard to that, although we do have high rates of short-term rentals and relatively high seasonal housing numbers. So these are the actual communities that were initially offered seasonal community designation, and the ones that are in bold are the ones that have actually gone ahead and accepted seasonal designation, and this was all prior to the new regulations coming out. So Chatham, Eastham, Orleans, Provincetown, Truro, and Wellfleet on Cape Cod have already accepted the designation.
Has Harwich said no, or they just haven't voted yet? Do you know, Kathy?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know whether any of these others, like Brewster, Dennis, and Harwich, or anybody else who've been given designation as of December 2025, are planning on having anything on their annual town meeting. As of right now, it's my understanding that the select board are going to be talking about seasonal communities at their meeting next Tuesday. So when we're going to be there for short-term rentals, it'd be interesting to listen in on seasonal communities, and I believe that they have at least looked at drafting an article for accepting the designation for the annual town meeting. These are all the different communities that were offered that designation opportunity in December, and obviously Yarmouth and the rest of Cape Cod was included on those designations, as well as a lot of municipalities in Berkshire County and a couple in Franklin. So the benefits, I think we all can understand that the benefits associated with it. We'll get right into what they are. Year-round housing trust funds. Right now, we have affordable housing trust that basically helps create affordable housing. This would create something that's a year-round housing trust, and it doesn't necessarily have to be affordable. It could be something that's more like an attainable, which is considered to be up to 250% of area median income, rather than the affordable, which is the 80% of area median income. It would seem a similar process as our affordable housing trust. It could even be the same members, but I think it might need to be two separate entities to do that. So that's an opportunity to look at, and that's something we have certainly plenty of time. This is all, do we want to take advantage of this benefit? Year-round occupancy restrictions, it allows us to acquire year-round housing occupancy restrictions. We obviously do that for affordable, but this allows us to do it for other things. And it's obviously what they're trying to do is ensure that this is someone's principal residence and that they're using it year-round. Essential public employee preference, and I know this is something that kind of came out a little bit from the Matakees Utilization Committee and the housing land use team. They're very interested in having some type of preference for public employees. This is a mechanism that I think would allow you to do that, or at least that's what they're indicating. And who's included in that can be public works employees, first responders, town administrators, and really any town employee or municipal employee that you are considered vital to operations. I think it also includes county and state employees as well. And you don't necessarily have to be full-time. You could be part-time, intermittent, or volunteer, like some communities maybe out in Western Mass have volunteer fire departments, so they wanted to make sure that they would be eligible for that. The other type of housing, you can restrict it for artist housing. I think as we mentioned when we were looking at the draft, the definition's pretty loose, in my opinion, as to who would be considered an artist. But it's really someone who produces or supports artistic and literary activities, and basically leaves it up to the communities to decide how flexible they want to be with that. The residential property tax exemption, Yarmouth doesn't have that right now, but non-seasonal communities can go up to 35% of the average assessed value. This would allow us to go up to 50%. So essentially, a $600,000 home, which is kind of the median, you would take off 50% of that, and you would only be taxed on the
First 300,000.
first 300,000.
First 100,000, did you say?
300,000.
300,000, that's what I
Yeah.
thought, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you have a really expensive house, I don't know whether it's helping you that much, but this is to help people who live here year-round and kind of kick some of the burden of taxes, property taxes, onto people who are the seasonal. So I think this is something we had in the local comprehensive plan of looking at this, and this is something that the finance committee was interested in looking at. So they're trying to make it a little bit easier with the seasonal communities and allowing you to go a little bit higher if you feel that's right for your community. And of course, they always come with some money. I don't think it's a particularly large pot of money, in my opinion. It's $4 million, but it's $2 million for FY26 and $2 million for FY27. So eligible communities that have actually accepted the designation can get between 50 and 175,000. I think 50 is the minimum. If you have a larger population, it kind of goes up from there to up to $175,000. And certain activities, obviously, making zoning amendment changes related to seasonal communities would be allowed, and looking at housing needs assessment. And then also, I thought was interesting is horizontal infrastructure projects to leverage housing development, which makes me kind of think of Matakees and, maybe pre-design and that type of thing. But this kind of money isn't going to go very far. So I'm hope if they continue with this, they'll be putting a lot more money into these buckets for seasonal communities.
Did they discuss the fact that they could run out, if it's only $2 million a year and you've got more communities applying, what happens if they run out of money?
Oh, yeah, I don't think they have enough money.
No.
And I think that they might have decided on this $2 million per year before they gave the designation to all these other communities.
Right.
It's going to take a little while for people to, take on the
So there's
designation.
no guarantee you'd get any money?
I don't know how many communities there are total at 50,000, how much that would be, but
So it'd be a minimum,
that was the impression I was
they
given, that
just
there's a
took it and
minimum.
divided and, yeah.
Yeah. It might become, though, minimum at a first-come, first-served basis until you reach the 2 million, because that's all they have allocated and appropriated. And then, of course, this is the designation requirements. I'll go over it very briefly here, and then we can kind of get into a little bit more details of my memo. Basically, the municipalities need to adopt, and we need to do this within 24 months of accepting the designation. So, deep breath, we don't have to make a change immediately. We got some time to think about it, but I'm bringing this kind of to the planning board's attention because if it's going to be an article on annual town meeting, I would expect the questions to arise. Well, what do these requirements with zoning actually mean, and what does the planning board think about it?
Are they contemplating this April town meeting or the one in the fall?
This April.
This major change, what are they going to do about informing the public about it?
Well, I haven't heard anything directly coming out of the town administrator's office. I just know that they have been asking and looking at articles from other communities with the idea of considering it. I don't believe it's been discussed at the select board. It's on their agenda, or at least it was on the future agenda items for being on next Tuesday.
Oh,
So I think that would be a matter of discussion. Then maybe some of the select board members like, no, it's just too fast. We need a little bit more
well, I
time to
think
think
it's way
about
too
it.
fast.
Or people say, oh, no, we really think these benefits are important.
Well, the
But
benefits are not quite, several are illusory, as we just identified. You may not even get any money. But this is a sea change it could be a sea change in how our town is.
I think we need to
Imaged.
think about, we need to ask more questions. and we'll kind of get into some of what I think the questions we might need to ask, but there's a lot of unknowns, and I think the biggest question is related to the movable tiny houses. Tiny houses are tiny houses, fine, but the movable tiny house and how it's defined is of concern. So
Well,
we'll just,
not only that, but the regulation would require the town to give up its ability to reject them. That's one of the biggest,
that's the question.
yeah, I think
the
that's one of the
question.
biggest
Can we ban them
flaws.
outright if we don't want them, if we have communities?
We live in I mean, doesn't seem wise, given the whole scenario that we're dealing with in the town about, all the capital projects that we have to pay for, the burden on the residential communities, that we would give up a right to reject something that could negatively affect the value of everyone's lot. I just don't think I think that's something that really needs to be seriously considered before you rush this to town.
Yeah.
I thought they were talking about the fall town meeting, so that would give us plenty of time to have public hearings and,
They may decide that more public input's needed and that's what they decide to do. I don't believe it's been on the select board agenda before.
but you think it's going to be discussed next Tuesday?
I think that's what it was on the future agendas for the 24th that had seasonal communities listed there. Sometimes things move around, but that was the way it was. So, two things, undersized lots, limits as of right requirements to year-round attainable housing units, and basically prohibits it from being rented for less than 6 months. We'll talk a little bit more. I don't think this tells you the whole story. And same thing with tiny homes, limits as of right requirements to year-round housing units, requires tiny homes to comply with state building code, which is very interesting as well. And then meeting applicable water and sewer, We'll talk in detail about what the requirements are. The regulation update, I think this is kind of, I think they did actually implement all of these changes, and you have the red line version of the changes. Don't take that as gospel, that was me doing, that's why I say unofficial copy, because I'm sure something might have gotten done not correctly. But they provided more flexibility to year-round occupancy restrictions and how they can do it. They listed a bunch of other legal documents versus just a deed restriction. They tried to clarify the tiny home and ADU overlap, and the way they did that was saying that tiny homes had to be the principal dwelling, which again, didn't make a lot of sense to me as to what they're trying to get at. To me, the tiny home always made sense as they were pushing this as a more of an affordable way of getting an accessory dwelling unit and kind of combining all of the things in the Affordable Homes Act. Undersized lots, I think people were concerned that they were going to be creating new undersized lots, so they clarified that it's only existing lots. They clarified the lot size of being at least 10,000 square feet or 25% of the district's minimum lot size. For us, it's always going to be the 10,000 because it's whichever's greater, so 10,000. And then this is new, is they added in setbacks. They had nothing with regard to setbacks in there before, and it was basically 1 foot per 1,000 square foot, so 10 foot for a 10,000 square foot lot. But in no case can it be more than 15 feet, and of course you need to have 20 feet of frontage. So that's kind of their overview, and they've done that. But maybe we can kind of get a little bit into what some of the concerns are. The devil's always in the definitions with these state regulations. It's always there. The key thing that they didn't put in their summary that was a change was in the original draft that we looked at when we had talked about those draft regulations. We hadn't been offered designation at the time, but they, at that time, said that we could allow, further regulate, or prohibit movable tiny houses, which was my main concern. So I'm just kind of like, okay, not a big deal. But they actually changed it to just say provisions that may allow or further regulate movable tiny houses. So when they say further regulate, they don't mean prohibit. They typically mean you can put some guardrails on there, you can make a special permit, but I don't think you can specifically prohibit. And then what the
Unless it specifically says you can prohibit this.
That's my question that I put into the state, because
You cannot regulate prohibition, that's the whole point. They think by saying you can further regulate, you can stop it. You cannot regulate prohibition. You have to specifically say it is prohibited.
that's what I think this
Yeah.
reads. And so that's my big concern. And that was kind of,
That's how I interpreted it, the same exact way Susan did.
and I do too,
Unless you specifically say it's prohibited, it is allowed. Yeah, so you've
in
got to.
some fashion.
Yes,
Fashion.
and they soften it by saying you can further regulate, but
They didn't talk about this in any of the presentations
Well,
that
naturally
I've
they
been
wouldn't.
to. They didn't include it as documented in their summary of changes. I think this is the biggest and most significant change,
Yes.
and the thing that I have the biggest concern about.
Yes, and right now, the town, at least this town, has got the right and the authority to prohibit. This would remove that right from this town, which
I think so. And obviously, there's questions to the state, there could be questions to legal counsel to kind of clarify
You're
all
gonna
of
get
these
all
things.
that before the town meeting? I mean, these are huge, significant,
I don't know. The Cape Planners are having a meeting in March, and it's going to be having someone from Livable Housing and Livable Communities coming and answering our specific questions. So I think one of the key things that we can start thinking about, and I've started thinking about, is what are some of the questions that we want asked and clarified for us?
and actually, it should be the state that defines whether that can be prohibited or not. This is a state regulation.
The email I sent was to the person who gave the presentation from the Housing
Yeah.
and Livable
And
Communities.
a definitive, clear, unambiguous, non-nuanced
Yeah.
statement.
It's interesting because I put in the chat, I said, can we prohibit and regulate? And the response was, you can regulate.
Yeah, well, there's your answer.
They didn't answer part of the question.
Yeah, they did answer it. The answer
Yeah,
is no. Yeah, the answer is no, you can't prohibit.
Yeah,
You
but
can
that's-
regulate, but you cannot prohibit.
It's a subtle change, but it's a huge
Oh, it's
change.
massive. It's massive. Yeah.
Especially when you start looking at what a movable tiny home definition is. And it's a tiny house that is house trailer or an auto home as defined by Chapter 90.
Right.
This is Chapter 90, Chapter 90 doesn't deal with dwelling units at all. It's about, RMV and vehicles and roads and that type of thing, so.
It's a trailer.
Right.
Right,
So
It's either
the
a
fact that that's where they went for their definition was disturbing.
right.
So auto home, obviously, it's a motor vehicle originally designed or permanently altered and equipped for human habitation, which is not used to transport property other than that property used for human habitation or camping purposes. That's an RV.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's an
Oh,
RV.
definitely.
That's an RV.
Madam
And a
Chair,
hou-
can I ask
Yes,
Mark a
certainly.
question related to this? Mark, just a quick question on tiny homes and,
Mark Grills, our building commissioner.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mark Grills, Building Commissioner. How are
Thanks,
you?
Mark. Hey, Mark, just a question on this, on tiny homes. Can you regulate the energy code on this? Is there
Yes,
any?
they are. Well, on these movable whatever they're calling them, those are trailers, and they're not regulated by the building code. I can't issue a building permit for it for no reason. It's a trailer. The tiny homes are required to meet the standard. They need a HERS rating. They
Right,
need
that's
all
what I
the
was
same
wondering
things
if
as a
they had
regular
to-
house.
Had to meet hers rating.
And they need to have a continuous footing around the perimeter of it. If it's under 400 square feet, it doesn't have to have a 4-foot frost-protected foundation. It just has to have a continuous footing, which can be, the minimum is 12 inches.
Okay. I was curious if you could regulate from the HERS standpoint.
Yeah, they allowed it in the building code. It's in Appendix AQ in the IRC.
Yeah.
But that's for a tiny home, not a movable.
No, that's a trailer. They can
Trailer or
put
the-
some fancy name on it. It's a trailer.
It's a trailer,
Trailer or mobile home.
right.
Can you regulate either one of them?
No,
That's what I thought.
manufactured
Tiny homes,
in a
yes, but
factory
anything
somewhere.
that's movable is not regulated. Okay, thank
Correct.
you.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm going to go get my stuff and then sit back up here. It's got a nice table.
Yeah, that's a good idea. There's just something in here that I wanted to look at. Yeah, it just says the requirement that tiny houses shall comply with. It doesn't say and movable tiny houses. So it's all tricky-dicky. So house trailers are kind of the same thing, you're just trailing it behind. It could be a camper. So I have some inquiries into, like I say, the state. And then I also, any questions that you guys think you'd like to get answered on tiny homes, definitely get it to me and I can get it to the state via
I
this.
have multiple questions.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I guess undersized lots is the other requirement with regard to zoning. I don't think that this one is as significant simply because we already allow a lot of undersized, not grandfathered, non-conforming lots. 90, not 90 may be high, but 75% are probably in some way not conforming with current zoning standards.
Okay.
So what I did, and I sent it out in email, and I also gave you guys a hard copy, just to kind of give you a brief overview of what's already included. Mark and I had a great meeting today, and I finally got some understanding of what's allowed, because that's normally something I don't deal with, and that's Mark's office deals with that. But essentially, you know, you can do a single lot. It conformed at the time that it was recorded, but can be as small as 5,000 square feet with 50 feet of frontage. The key is it cannot have been held in common ownership with other contiguous lots, either at the time of or since the effective date of the increased requirement. So if you have an old lot and you just bought it and it's been sitting there for a long time and you're the only one owning it and you haven't owned anything next to it, I don't think there's very many of these lots left, but there's probably a few. And then there's also, with regard to 2 or 3 adjoining lots, it has to be on a duly recorded and endorsed plan, so it can't just, needs to be something that we can look at. Recorded means it might have been before you guys existed, and it just went to the Registry of Deeds, and endorsed, obviously, comes something from the planning board. And it cannot apply to more than 3 contiguous lots held in common ownership. So if you have 3 lots held in common ownership, you might be applicable to this, of having separate lots. Lots containing a minimum of 7,500 square feet with 75 feet of frontage, or a minimum of 15,000 square feet with 50 feet of frontage, if approved in what I refer to as a flag lot. You know, we have the narrow, smaller frontage, as long as you can create the flag lot in the back. This is all paraphrasing, so Mark knows it's not. Nobody in the public can say, Kathy said, it's going to be what Mark says. And then the next section is other non-conforming residential lots, and this gets a little bit more specific. This is something that has to have been approved or endorsed by the planning board on or before June 3rd, 1996, and obviously recorded, and then not held in common ownership with more than 2 abutting lots. So again, getting to those 3 as of June 3rd, 1996. So the lot needs to be a minimum of 10,000 square feet, but this is the first time we say of non-wetland lot area. All the other ones don't say anything about wetlands. And either 75 feet of frontage or 50 feet of frontage if you have that minimum frontage reduction, and you could put a 75-foot by 75-foot square. So that's a flag lot, but they've really decreased the size of the square that you need to do. Minimum front yard setbacks equal to the dimensional requirements table, and note, it's I, which basically says doesn't need to be more than 30% of the depth of the lot, and you can also, can't be more than the average setback of the building on each side. So if everyone else is close to the road, you can be close to the road, and nobody expects you, if you have a fairly narrow, to be more than 30% back from that. Minimum rear yard, again, it's 203.5, so the dimensional table, but not more than the average rear setbacks or buildings on abutting properties, but not less than 12 feet. And maximum building coverage, and that's as section, which is 25%, is 203.5. And then we also have in section 412.5.
I think I just asked one
sure.
question. So is it my understanding between Mark and Kathy, if the tiny lot, the movable homes or whatever, the setback requirement for that would supersede anything on this table? Because they have new setback requirements for.
Depends on what part of the zoning bylaw somebody wants to apply to. So I've just given you 3 options of someone with a particular lot that they might be able to meet one of these things and build. These have the least amount of restrictions. It doesn't tell you what size lot or what size building you need to build or how many bedrooms you need to have. If you can qualify, I would think, under one of these, you'd want to qualify under one of these, because it's probably the
So
same.
these are just the setback requirements.
They're area and setback.
So how does this mesh with the intended?
Setbacks won't matter for a trailer,
That's what I thought.
because I don't issue a building permit for it. I'll never see it. I'll get in the health department, I'll get a septic plan, I'll get a septic permit, and there'll be a water, a plumbing permit, there'll be an electrical permit. There won't be a building permit issued.
So the setbacks would not, the edge of the trailer could be 3 feet from the boundary line.
That's right, well, yeah, I'm not sure, I'm not
That's how I read
100%
it,
certain,
so-
but yes, that's how
That's how I was reading it, that these would be waived for the new,
the setbacks refer to structures, and trailers are not
not
structures.
structures, that's what I thought. Okay.
Can I ask you, Mark?
Sure.
So I have a trailer, a pull behind that we travel with. If I had a lot in town of 5,000 or more square feet, I could just park it there and I could live in it?
Not today.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not that I want to.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
No,
Well, it's just going to open up so many people coming to Mark asking these questions.
To say nothing of the, again, the,
The angry neighbors that don't like
yeah.
it. that doesn't-
The- I mean, it's like another assault on residential neighborhoods, you know, chipping away at the character of a residential neighborhood, so.
So the other one is affordable lots. This is basically in our inclusionary zoning section. So if we have some lots out there recorded as of January 1, 2009, and they're located in a residential zoning district and currently vacant of any residential dwelling, but also it can't be one of those unbuildable lots like it's supposed to be a park or an open space designation within a subdivision, but that's up to 10,000 square foot minimum with 20 feet of frontage, or they even allow for a recorded access easement of at least 20 feet, assuming that you can ensure that you have adequate access, so it's not like one of these crazy things. No part of the access, and there's some other weird things, like no part of the access drive shall be within 20 feet of a principal dwelling on an adjoining lot. I think that's trying to give a little bit of privacy for people. Minimum side yard setbacks, again, are equal to 203.5, the dimensional standards, or an average setback of structures on adjacent lots with a minimum of only a 10-foot side yard setback, but also a minimum of 12 feet to other dwelling units. Affordable structures shall be a minimum of 80 feet to an existing principal structure if a flag lot. So if you have a lot behind someone, they want to give you enough room that you have 80 feet between the buildings in that particular circumstance. ZBA can also issue a special permit if you have a lot that's less than 10,000 square feet, if the lot's similar in size or shape to adjacent lots and meets all other criteria. And of course, you need to meet health regulations and Concom regulations. I know that nothing in my time, I don't think, has ever, in your time, has done an affordable lot.
I didn't know that section existed until today.
Okay. Again, I think most people, this requires an affordable housing restriction on
Right.
the deed. So if you can do what you want to do in another way with less restrictions, I think most people are going to try and find that way. So back in 2024, the Affordable Homes Act had a section on merged lots that changed Chapter 40A, Section 6, and just basically talks about adjacent lots under common ownership. They don't specify how many, should not be treated as a single lot, so they not be considered merged for local zoning purposes if at the time of the recording or endorsement, the lots conform to the existing requirements of the area, frontage, width, and yard or depth, where such lot was done, and the lot shall not be less than 10,000 square feet of area and 75 feet of frontage. So I think we have a lot of them. The existing bylaw allows for a lot of this already. But the key difference here is it doesn't say three common ownership. It could be 6 common ownership. I don't think it says. And then it needs to be located in a zoning district that allows for single-family residential use. And then this is the requirement again. We have to construct residential structure constructed on said lot shall not exceed 1,850 square feet. So it's limiting the size of your structure. But it also says shall contain not less than 3 bedrooms and shall not be used as a seasonal home or short-term rental. So this can be an issue, like if you're in the zone 2, if you're on a 10,000 square foot lot, you can't possibly have 3. Granted, sewers coming may change some of those things in the future. But my questions were, are there any limitations on the number of lots in common ownership? Can it be 10 and it's still 10 lots, which would have been considered merged before this was incorporated into 40A? And can we require minimum setbacks and other dimensional requirements? Because it doesn't say anything about setbacks in here. So can we regulate that in any way? And then getting back to what we've been talking about tonight was what are they trying to do with seasonal communities? And it's allowing by right what they refer to as attainable housing on undersized lots. So what they consider attainable housing to be is that year-round housing, which includes an affordable housing restriction, and it can be up to 250% AMI.
How is the attainable housing, what is different from affordable housing? Is it the percentage of income?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Affordable is
Okay.
typically 80%.
Yeah, so this is higher.
Yes.
I mean, it's actually lower, but it's higher.
But yeah, the affordable would go on the SHI, the subsidized housing inventory. These parcels would not, or these structures would not be able to be on there. It needs to be in a single-family residential zoning district, and same thing with the protected ADUs, that they call that any district where single-family residential dwellings are allowed either by right or special permit. So it'd be allowed everywhere in the town of Yarmouth except for the adult entertainment district and the B3 zoning district.
Kathy, do we know what the Yarmouth area medium income is?
I want to say 87? Okay.
86,000.
Is it 86 or, yeah, I know it's the lowest
Come on,
on the
Deirdre,
list.
you don't know.
Last I saw it was 86.
Yeah, it's-
I was going to say 87, so we're,
I knew it was under 70. I knew it was by several, yeah, it's about 86.
so, even at 250, you got to get a mortgage and all of that stuff and how much it costs, so it's still attainable. You can change that percentage, I think you can, but right now it says 250 AMI. The minimum 10,000 square foot lot, they talk about the 25% minimum lot size, but it's going to be, for us, it's always going to be 10,000 minimum with 20 feet of frontage. The setbacks, this is, again, as I mentioned, is a change that they added to the regulations, is 1 per 1,000, so it'll be 10 foot for a 10,000 square foot lot, but it can't be more than 15 feet. Can require adherence to any applicable floor to area ratio requirements. We don't have any of those. It doesn't reference any other dimensional requirements, like setbacks or anything like that. It just, or I'm sorry, not setbacks, but like height or building coverage. It just mentions, which you can kind of get to with floor to area ratio, but that's something that we don't have in our bylaw right now. You need to comply with federal, state, regional, and municipal laws, as long as the regional and municipal aren't stricter, or you've given a really darn good reason why you want to do it related to public health, safety, and welfare. And attainable housing on undersized lots shall be subject to that year-round occupancy restriction, which is that legally binding recorded document. It needs to be your primary residence, and you need to live there a minimum of 10 months in a 12-month period. So my questions were related to, can you set other dimensional requirements like building height and lot coverage, or is it just the floor to area ratio? And then I don't understand, how is the sale price for attainable housing unit calculated? How's the rent calculated? You're having some type of restriction on it, and how do you qualify owners or renters determined and selected? I hope it's not the same way it is for affordable housing, because that's very convoluted and very costly. So I don't, I couldn't find anything in here that explained that very well. So those are some of my ideas and questions that I have of things that I'd like clarified, but obviously, as we've discussed, the biggest one is related to movable tiny houses. It's a non-starter in my mind if that's something that we're required to do.
Say that again, Kathy.
In my mind, it's accepting the designation as a non-starter if you have to have a movable tiny houses. I'm concerned about what Yarmouth would look like in 10 years. I think we'd all would be. We worked really hard to try and balance a lot of different needs and with the character of our community, and this is something that's diametrically opposed to where our vision for the town of Yarmouth in many ways. And I'm kind of surprised that they included it, simply because we are the tourist destinations. Do you want people driving through our community and seeing a lot of people living in RVs and trailers and, yeah.
With boats parked in the driveway. with all respect for those of you that do own boats. Kathy, can I?
I have one.
Go ahead, Tom. No, go ahead, Tom.
I have one question on page 2, property tax exemption, is that income-based? So it just says 50% of the average assessed on page 2 of. I don't
That's
know.
on the,
It's, I don't know, I guess it's not marked.
That's the residential property tax exemption?
Yeah, is that income-based?
No.
No,
It's your
that's-
assessed home value.
It's
Home
the-
value.
So
the
anybody
assessed-
could apply for it.
year-round resident.
Automatic. If we adopted it,
Oh, we
that's how they would
adopted it.
calculate the tax rate. Yeah.
And you can't opt out of that.
You
If
can't
we
opt out of
adopt
the
it,
pro-
Is it
it's-
permanent?
it,
No,
the exempt,
if we accept seasonal designation, it
That is
does
the
not.
exemption,
No,
right.
but this is an opportunity that's presented that you
Okay.
have to go through the regular process of adopting residential
and
taxes.
okay.
So Kathy, if,
Good question.
2 years ago, Yarmouth did not meet whatever the criteria was for a designation at the time, because our percentage, I think it was 35% of the households had to be, I forget what the percentage was.
35.
But and then that changed, and there was a blanket designation basically given to towns on the Cape.
Right.
So So does the state confer the designation to us, or do we actually have to accept it? I
Oh, I'm sorry,
understand.
we actually have to accept it for a
right.
majority vote at town
That's what I
meeting.
thought, we have to
Yeah.
accept it. And if we did accept it, then, so these towns on page 3 of the handout, I was a little concerned on the chart that has all the color codes.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the color coding, number 1, and the percentage of seasonal units? Are those the percentage available, or the percentages that are actually rented?
What do you, which page are you
This,
looking at, this one?
this chart, the one, yeah, that's one. The one that starts with Brewster and Chatham on the left-hand side. It's the, how does a community become a seasonal community, with a question mark?
These were all the people who had over 35% seasonal units and were automatically offered the designation.
The blue ones?
Everybody on this entire page.
So what's the difference between the blue, the yellow, what's the difference between the yellow, what's the difference between the colors?
Different counties that they're in. You have Barnstable County,
Barnstable
Berkshire
County.
County.
Oh, I
Dukes
see what
County.
you mean, okay, all right, got it.
And the bold is people who have accepted the designation.
So they've accepted it, and now they have to,
On a majority vote at whatever, at their town meeting, yeah.
okay.
I don't know if any of these have city council or not. And then, this is everybody else. And they not only looked at percent seasonal units, but they also looked at your percent short-term rentals. And see that, I think they were looking, if you were over 3.5%, they kind of was looking at giving you the designation. So there's a criteria that they were kind of looking at in addition to the seasonal units.
So if I'm reading this table right, Kathy, the ones that are in bold, so Chatham has accepted the seasonal designation?
According to this chart, that,
Do we think that's accurate?
I do think it's accurate. I'd be shocked if, that you have to submit it to them within 60 days of accepting. I mean, they need to know, so I.
Because they didn't meet the criteria last time.
Chatham?
No, 35% of their homes were not, whatever the percentage was, they did not meet the threshold.
Yeah, they did. There's
54.5%.
54.5%.
Right, but during the first round,
They did.
They did.
Did they meet it?
They met the criteria.
Everybody on this one met the criteria in the first round, and Chatham's
Okay.
listed here. Yep. So it's a good dialogue. Questions, a good
Kathy, do
conversation.
you want us to submit, because I have a whole host of questions. Do you want me, do we just send them to you? Do you want us to send them to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
And I would ask any other members to do the same. Again, for this meeting, we're not expecting to take any action. Kathy's warning to us is that should this move to town meeting in April and/or November, all of these zoning questions are going to be addressed to us, and we just need to be prepared and get as smart as we can on this, because this is very complicated.
I'm shocked
This
that
is
they want
really
to do this in April. It's really astonishing. And plus the fact that a lot of our interested parties, the seasonal people that are now down in Florida that are coming back, aren't even aware of this.
That's right.
This is really shocking that this, I mean, this is, as Kathy said, this will change the DNA of our town. And a third of our residents are not even here to know about it or understand it. It is complicated.
Yeah, if we don't understand it,
Yeah.
somebody who's never even
Right.
seen it before is never gonna understand it.
Right.
And, there's a lot to it. I'm, just to jump in there, I have a lot of questions too, like Susan, but the number one is, to me, it's a deal breaker if movable homes. It just totally changed what we're trying to do here.
And I recall our discussion with the select board when we were putting together our zoning amendments for the fall on the boats and if I recall, the chair remembered why we had that restriction in the first place. And it was mostly around recreational vehicles and the fear way back in the 90s, or whenever that was promulgated by us, that we needed to restrict the visibility of them. And that's why we did it. And we're the only town on the Cape that has that, as far as we can tell, on the restrictions, behind the front line of the house. My search, I couldn't find anything. And you drive around and you can see, you can drive around now in Yarmouth and you can see, the Airstreams parked in the front of the house. So, anyway, yeah, that is the really key piece, I think, for us.
And also, I think, absent in this discussion is any kind of analysis about the tax impact. Remember, they're going to be giving a break to a certain category of resident that is not going to be available to everyone else. So I think there's sort of an equal protection under the law issue.
50% residential.
Yeah, the residential break, they're going to get a reduction in the taxes. So,
That's not
That's-
definite.
no, but
I was gonna say, that's not definite, and that's not even, that's a whole separate process that would need to be gone through. The only thing that this is saying is, instead of maxing out at 35%, if you're a seasonal community, you're maxed out at 50%. You still have a whole process that
right,
you
but
need to go through.
but in
to
order,
adopt.
if I were on the side of the table to try to incentivize people to vote for this,
so-
I would go to 50% and say you can get a 50% tax break, and that would be enticing to a lot of people. On the other side of the table, you then have to figure out, where am I going to make up those taxes?
You have to put the burden on the business community and the seasonal
Yeah.
housing.
Seasonal housing.
Non-residents.
That's right.
That, I mean,
It's totally changed the character
and-
too in the other direction.
exactly, and you're taking that vote when those people are not even here to participate in the discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see the transparency in all of that.
This vote's not happening anytime soon.
Well, I-
This is that's totally a completely separate process that would have.
It's all part of the same discussion. The seasonal community drives the rest of that discussion.
I think this was a discussion before seasonal communities. If we never adopted seasonal communities, I think we would still be looking at residential tax exemptions. It's actually one of the action items in the LCP, and it came out of a lot of discussions with the Finance
Finance
Committee.
Committee.
So we would be looking at that anyway. This just allows the percentage to change. That's all.
Well, and that becomes an incentive. You're right, but again,
It's incentive, though,
it's just a major change. It's a significant change in the way the town would look and do business and represent its citizens. And it, I think, requires a lot more discussion than, and we probably wouldn't even be able to have, would we even have a public hearing on it, on this designation before the,
I don't think that you're required to have a public hearing.
The public hearing would kind of be town meeting.
yeah, and how do you explain to people at town meeting this, you
Well, as
know?
Ken said, I mean,
How do we do this?
we know what some of these words mean.
A lot of people
I'll
do,
speak for
but
myself.
but not all of them.
Not all of them, no.
Agreement with you.
So, you get in front of Mary Smith, with all due respect, and she's not going to have any idea.
No, exactly. And then they're going to say, why didn't Joanne Crowley
And what's
bring
a
some
setback?
sort of,
And
right,
then Kathy will get up and try to tell them what a setback is.
and how this changes setbacks. The lady that puts a nice garden in the backyard, all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm going to have a blah blah right up against my beautiful garden. So it does, you're right, it changes the DNA of the town.
I'd like it not to be a zoning discussion at annual town meeting, because I don't think we'll be prepared.
No,
No,
and
for
zoning,
that.
no one
The
understands
key
zoning.
is that you, the public, are going to get another bite at this, and you will have public hearings when we start talking about zoning changes. And then, obviously, you'd get another bite at town meeting to vote, whether you want to vote for.
What is the vote actually going to say at the, what are we actually voting on at the town meeting? To accept the designation?
That's my understanding, but
That's all
I
you're-
believe they're
that's
going to
all
have
you're
a,
voting
That's
on.
all it is.
Right,
We're
but
gonna have
if
a
you
draft.
accept the designation, do the requirements flow from that? Do we have to do the zoning? Do we have to? Okay, so if we are going to get a second bite at this apple, then we should either, not be supporting this at the April meeting for more further discussion, because people aren't educated enough about it. And we're sitting here as the planning board. It's a huge impact on what we do. All the time we spent on a long-range plan, the comprehensive plan and the use of real estate and how we wanted to, but enhance and increase the value of our, this totally undercuts that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Madam Chair, that, as you pointed out, our first step needs to get our questions to Kathy. After that first step is done, the next step after the questions are answered is, do we truly support this or don't we? And then I think that's where the planning board needs to step in and send our letter to the select board and say whether we support it or we don't support it.
Yeah,
I think that has to be the natural process here.
definitely.
And at that point, if we support it, so be it. If we don't, so be it, and let the select board know it.
Yeah, would the letter have to be to the select board by next Tuesday? Did you say? that?
No.
All right, so but even though they're going to discuss it on Tuesday, it's just a discussion. There's no,
I
least
know
we
what
think-
you know. I saw it on the agenda, and like I say, I do know that there has been some articles from the previous communities that have accepted designation going around for compiling. The first draft of the warrant will also be reviewed on Tuesday. So stay tuned for the packet, because it'll tell you a lot of things about whether it's on a separate agenda item and whether there's an actual warrant article in the draft warrant.
And you'll have a lot more information, Kathy, after your planners meeting next month, so that you can present back. Because right now, we don't know what we don't know, so.
Yeah, a little sneaky there on the removal of the word prohibited, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next up is the short-term rental study, again, in preparation for the February 24th Select Board meeting. Do members have any other further comments on the short-term rental study conducted by UMass Amherst Donahue Institute and sponsored by the Yarmouth Affordable Housing Trust? I thought Kathy captured our sentiments rather well in the minutes, but if there are additional comments, we should put them out now. Deirdre?
Following up on your suggestion that we should look at smaller areas within the town. I did go into the ACS data and pulled up the seasonal percentage for the 6 census tracts, as well as, I think it's 12 block groups within the census tracts. And I don't think, I mean, that came up in the discussion of the idea of setting a cap on smaller areas, which I don't think any of us think is a good idea. But looking at it, I found it interesting, so I made some, here, 1, 2, 3, some copies of.
Thank you.
1, 2. I don't know if Mark wants a copy, but basically, it just sort of shows the same distribution as the short-term rental study showed on the air DNA picture, but I thought it was quite interesting, which is why I gave you all copies, because I thought you'd all be interested.
This is the percent seasonal.
Percent seasonal, and it's not exactly what is, here, Mark, thank you. It's not exactly the same seasonal that the seasonal communities calculated. I think they're taking it from American Community Survey, but I don't know what their base was and all that. So I came up with, for Yarmouth, like about, on the latest one, 29% seasonal, and they were saying 32 or 33. So I'm a little off on whatever base they used. I
I
didn't
think
use.
there was 2022 data.
Was it?
I think so.
And
Because
what
the
I came-
percent short-term rentals isn't right either. I think
Yeah.
it's a little low.
It's, yeah, and
Opposite.
this is from the newest that just came out, the 2024 5-year ACS data. And what I did was take the percent vacant for seasonal use as a proportion of the total housing units in the area.
That's what this percentage represents?
That's what this percentage represents. And I just thought it shows it's what you'd expect, that the heaviest use is down on the sound side. And but and those zeros are kind of weird. One of them, literally every housing unit mentioned was occupied. So there were no seasonal units. The other one said that there were it's that zero that's right there over by White's Path. And there are not very many residential units in there, but they said there were 150 and they were all for rent. So I figure something must have been being built or something like that. So these are, they are certainly, like any of the estimates for such small units that we have, they have huge margins of error, and so you have to take them with a lot of grains of salt. But I still think it's an interesting picture of the distribution of the different types of residential areas in the town. So,
Well, thank you for this.
Yes, amazing work,
Yeah.
thank you.
and I think that's my major comment on the short-term rentals at this point, even though it's,
So the columns that create the percentages here, Deirdre, are column number 1 and the fourth column over for seasonal recreational?
that's right, that's
Okay,
right, yeah,
great. Yeah, I see the 2 zeros.
yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on the short-term rentals?
I haven't seen a final version. I know that we had that last meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust. I do know that they met on Tuesday. I didn't go to the meeting, but it was like just an old business item. It wasn't like UMass was going to be there or anything. But I haven't seen any edits. Whether they included, like I said, they were supposed to include something with regard to the community impact fee.
Right.
And then you had talked about maybe not being quite so definitive. I haven't seen anything, so we may see it when it goes to the select board. I can ask Mary if she has a final version.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just ask one?
Certainly,
What are the next steps on this, Kathy? On this whole seasonal thing, who's going to make the decision about whether we should be looking at a new bylaw or our existing bylaw is sufficient? How does that all play out?
I think it gets back to, do we have a clear understanding of what the problem is?
Right, is there a
So that-
problem? What
there
is
a
there?
key to it? But I do think, based on the last meeting, there was a general consensus that maybe we want to do something with regard to corporate or completely commercial investment within there.
Okay.
But that, right now, I don't think, other than that, and maybe some things about quality of life and that type of thing, that there's a lot of the changes that actually need to be made. I think it would be interesting if we could have the Affordable Housing Trust, like, look at these numbers maybe not annually, but every 2 years or something, so that let's start tracking this much more closely.
Right.
Using the same data points, so that we can at least,
See
I don't know
change
how
over time,
expensive that
yeah.
would be, but it would be interesting to see and track it over time, so that we know if we're hitting a tipping point, and we know it before it's an obvious problem.
So right now, other than the corporate piece, there's no overwhelming drive to change our existing bylaw?
I think we need to hear from the select board. The only select board member we've heard from is Mark with his participation in the Affordable
Okay.
Housing Trust. So, and he keeps asking the question, is this a
We have a
clearly
problem.
defined
Yeah.
problem? It's kind of echoing a lot of things that you guys also said at the last meeting.
Those points that you just made, but when I was looking at this, I was also reviewing the zoning code as written currently, and I think that aside from the corporate and some of the complaints about monitoring the renters, I think that the way it is, we should just extend it, really.
Well, I think if we think we're done analyzing,
Yeah.
then let's just remove it, if we think we're good. Or if we don't have time to add something with regard to corporate then we can extend it.
Extend it, yeah.
There's no downside to status quo, in other words, at
I
this
think
point.
at some point, the Attorney General is going to say,
At some point,
The
some
sunset
point there
clause
could
is
be.
for you to
At
have.
some point, there could be,
downside
but
to status quo. I feel strongly on the corporate side, very strongly.
yeah, that's the only
Basically
piece.
making unregulated hotels.
Right, right.
Definitely.
If we don't step in and do something on the corporate side. But I also feel strongly, too, that if you overregulate short-term rentals, all you're gonna do is drive people underground.
Yeah.
And that's not a direction that I feel that we wanna go.
No,
So,
you're right. Look at how hard it was to get data, because a lot of that data now was done by the private sector, and they don't have to give it to us.
Right,
But if we don't extend it, my understanding is that.
expires in November, so we have to.
Right,
It really would mean that we had no,
right.
didn't the court order say that means it's not allowed at all?
That's
Right,
correct.
yeah.
So we have to.
We'd roll it back, yeah,
at
be
mi-
like we
at
had
minimum,
nothing.
extend it.
Yeah.
you either extend it, eliminate it, or modify it.
Right.
And I'd
The only
I'd be in favor of modifying.
Modified.
Yeah,
For
I
the
think
corporate
that-
piece.
For the
the
corporate
corporate
piece,
piece,
I
yeah.
think that makes
That makes sense.
sense, absolutely.
Just gotta get the wording right, gotta make sure that we're hitting what we really want to be hitting. It's always, everybody can always find a loophole, that's the hard part.
You're not gonna be able to write something for everything, but
Right. But at least corporation is legally defined. That would help, that does help.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
does help.
Yeah.
The word corporation is legally defined, so.
The owner never uses it. It's not accessory to anything.
Okay, moving on to Matakee's update. Kathy and I were at the Select Board meeting a week ago, lost track of time, and the MUC presented to the Select Board a fairly detailed presentation, and there's an upcoming public one next week, right, Kathy?
Yeah, it's next Wednesday here in the hearing room and via remote access at 6 PM. We're going to give a brief presentation kind of to let everybody know how we kind of got to where we are, because it was a very detailed planning process and a lot of good information, and people may not be fully aware of what process has occurred. So they just see these concept designs and they're like, how'd you get there? We want to kind of bring them along and say, we did a lot of work and talked to a lot of different people to come up with these particular ideas. And then we'll also talk about the Mass Development Grant. So it's going to be a little bit more of the stuff that happened earlier, and then adding on at the end what happened at the select board presentation. So we really hope a lot of people come and kind of talk about it and get that dialogue going. I just want to be clear that nothing is definitive, nothing is defined. This is, these seem like good ideas, let's vet them some more. That's kind of where we are.
Just something anecdotal. Tom will appreciate this because we're both on the library contract. People are now confusing, not all people, but in general conversation with my neighbors are confusing the library project with Mattakese. For example, some of them are saying, why isn't the library going over at Mattakese? Why aren't we doing it more of a civic center in Mattakese? If you're going to have, because they're aware of some of the things they talked about in the Mattakese, and all of a sudden they're saying, gee, how come the library's not going over there? Because there's so many commonalities in use of space, meeting space, instruction space, classroom space. So we have to, and of course, our library project is moving up in front of the citizens in April also. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. The citizens are like being bombarded with a lot of, and they're getting confused. They don't have time to spend, not that we have all that much time, but they don't have time to go through all the puts and calls associated with how did you get there? How come this wasn't considered? It's getting confusing.
Yeah, I think the key is, and that's why we kind of have to go back a couple steps with the presentation on Wednesday, is that they did the building analysis, and it's not worth saving. It wasn't worth saving 17 years ago, and it's just been deteriorating ever since, and it's not worth saving now. So there's never going to be, kind of like a municipal center there using that existing building. It's just not going to
Use of the
happen.
existing building should have been clearly, unequivocally rejected, and it wasn't.
It was early on.
Ultimately, yeah, but
Yeah, it was
early on, there
early
was, let's take a look and see. That gave people hope that, gee, maybe we could save the auditorium, we could save the gym, we could,
It needs a bulldozer is what it needs.
and it's over and done with it.
You needed the
Nothing should be
dialogue to
changed.
pull everybody along so everybody understood
Yeah.
the scenario.
Yeah, and it's hard to do, with a diverse, it's just hard to do, to educate. People just don't have, they pay attention just before they have to do something about it. Whether they're gonna vote on it or, testify, then they pay attention. But they're living their lives, and they expect people at town hall to sort of move the stuff along for them and keep them well-informed, and it's hard to do.
Okay, moving along, meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 3rd, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 4th, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. Committee updates. Anybody got a committee update?
Not since last meeting.
Nope. Okay.
None? That's unheard of.
None.
None.
The library building committee didn't have a meeting last week.
Any board member updates? I did attend by Zoom the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting last week on Blue Sky Cellular Monopole. And it's as if the original one that we looked at, they just threw it out the window. That's what the court mandated, I understand. And so they've shortened the pole. It's down to, we think, 96 feet.
It's only 10 stories.
Yeah. They've pushed it back further off of 28, right, Kath?
Yeah.
And moved around a couple of the utilities, I think the power generator. There were a couple of minor adjustments. And the Zoning Board of Appeal laid out some conditions about landscaping, which was good. And that was my comment, because that was one of our concerns.
Yep.
But it's essentially done, right?
It's the best we could have negotiated without them actually going to a different site. So it's pushed back, so a lot of the larger trees along Route 28 between the parking lot and there can be retained, which
We're
will
still
help.
talking about the church, right?
Yes.
the site by the
Our Lady
church,
of the
yeah,
Highway.
yeah.
Yep.
But now that they're not leaves on the trees, I mean, you can really, there's a lot of, but in the summertime, that's fully screened. In the winter, it's really a lot, you
Well,
can see a lot.
When they did the DRI, the commission asked them to do it, the balloon test at the 120 and the 90, and then they did the renderings, and it makes a big difference,
it
at least
does.
in the rendering. So I really think them going, obviously, we had gotten from 120 down to 110, but those extra 20 feet, I think, are going to be significant. You're going to see it for less. It's going to be more blip. Don't look.
Yeah.
Just keep your eye.
It's less threatening. It doesn't like jump up in front of you, yeah.
Hopefully, you don't hit a red light at Forest Road, and you don't have to look at it.
Because my understanding is they never did have an alternative site. That was always the site they needed.
It
Because
was-
they just were hard, they just couldn't find any other site, so.
They
didn't
had
look very hard.
difficulty.
They didn't, but that's the site they wanted, because it was easy for them, look at the topography, it's easy for them to
Sure, it's all
construct.
about site coverage for cell towers.
Oh,
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely.
It needed to be somewhere in that particular area.
Okay. Kath, correspondence and any staff updates?
Let's see. I was going to talk about Blue Sky, check. I sent out the public hearing notice for the March 5th Cape Cod Commission LCP public hearing at 3 o'clock. It's in person and remote. I'm going to be in person. I'm assuming, are you going to be in person as well, Joanne?
March,
March 5th. It's a
Yep.
Thursday. It's our victory lap.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we should all be proud. We
And then on the Monday, next Monday is the classes for the open,
Oh, the open meeting law,
Yeah.
yes.
3 o'clock and 7 o'clock,
Yeah,
correct?
I think she only had 2 people who signed up for the 7 o'clock, so if she doesn't get more, she may cancel.
Okay,
Yeah, they had like 24 people signed up total, so 22 in the afternoon, and the other 2 were in. It's always good, there are new open meeting laws, so it's helpful to get up to speed. And then I think they're going to do a little bit of the ethics stuff as well. Annual reports are due. I gave a draft to Joanne today. I was late on that. But we have a lot to be proud of with this past year. So we had 2 new members, so it's all been a very exciting 2025 for the Town of Yarmouth Planning Board. And then just to let you know, on May 2nd, between 10 and 3, we're going to have the Parkers River Landing grand opening.
Ooh,
And it's also going to be combined with the Resiliency Fair. So we're going to try and have a bit of a to-do at the site that day. It's a Saturday. So
all right.
that's going to be
Saturday after
exciting.
town meeting.
What's that?
I said it's the Saturday after town meeting.
Yeah, so come relax after town meeting. Walk the boardwalk.
Our upcoming meetings, Kath, you want to run through those with us?
Yeah, so obviously February 24th, I'm going to, I guess, who's coming to the meeting on February 24th with the select board for the short-term
Try
rental?
and make it
Is that Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I might.
I expect to go, yeah.
I'll go.
All right.
I may go.
So I'm going to post it, I guess is my point. I'll post the meeting.
But Kathy, and if I go, and I probably will go, because I think I might use, as a citizen, I think I'll use the opportunity during that first 15 to talk about the concerns about rushing this seasonal thing. Use that as, and I won't speak as a planning member, I'll speak as a citizen.
You have a right as a public member to talk about it. I don't know whether they're going to ask any questions of us if we're there.
They usually don't ask questions during that
No,
public
not
session.
during that. I'm saying when they're talking
Oh, I
about
see,
it.
okay, yeah, but
We have to see staff in the back, or they see a plan.
sometimes
We'll
they-
have you come
yeah,
up.
but I'll be there then, in addition, and then I'll flop into the member of the planning board designation.
So our next meeting on March 4th is going to be the public hearing on the very minor zoning amendment article. I'm not going to advertise it very aggressively because I don't think it's a particularly significant change. And then we'll discuss, hopefully, and maybe make some recommendations on a possible vote directly after the public hearing. And then assuming everything goes well and there's been no appeal to the 63 Thatcher Shore Road subdivision, we will, I put that on the agenda, and you got to sign the actual
Oh,
bylaw.
okay.
So very simple. Unfortunately, we have a very heavy agenda item for March 18th. I tried to put people on the 4th, but nobody wanted the 4th. Everybody wanted the 18th. And you can let me know if it's going to be too much, but we're going to have a public hearing for a use special permit for Becker's Liquors, where they want to put, essentially as a duplex, 2 units on the second floor of a very nice redevelopment project that they have. This is a use special permit. It's not,
The liquor,
yeah, Becker,
will they take down the neon sign?
I don't think so. It's kind of classic. Isn't it classic? It's classic. They're doing a nice job, and they did a nice job with the architecture, and they really improved that whole parking lot. They're going to be combined. They actually own 3 lots there, and they're going to be combining that. So they have double the minimum lot size for a duplex, but for
They'll
some
be
reason
They'll be on
duplexes.
top of the liquor store, is that
Yeah,
what it is?
yep,
Okay.
in the back.
It's on top,
Yep.
yeah.
And then we have 2 Village Center Overlay District projects that have kind of, they were submitted in 2025. One of them is for 645 Route 28, and that's the mixed-use one that has the 11 dwelling units, and then the 2 small, 1,000-square-foot each commercial. That has gone through design review and site plan review. team.
What's that property now, Kathy?
Oh, it's the old,
Dilapidated old Chinese restaurant.
Chinese
Oh,
restaurant,
the Chinese.
Yeah.
The old China Inn?
kind of opposite.
that applies to way too many
Yeah,
properties.
near the,
Hunan's.
At least 3.
near the Sons of Aaron.
Yeah, yeah.
Near the Sons of Aaron,
Right.
With the roof like this.
yes.
Yeah, the saddle.
Yes,
call it
they
the
took
saddle.
something out.
What was the other one, Kathy?
And then the other one is for 703 Route 28, which is the Gardner Tile property. That's right along Parkers River on the south
Is that going to be
side.
6 condos?
It's going to be 6, yeah, and
That'd
that's
be a
in
great redevelopment.
3 duplexes. Again, they've done a really nice job with the architecture. They've done a good job with the site design. And that also has gone through site design review committee as well as site plan review team. And it's kind of, they're just making some tweaks based on the comments, which I appreciate. And then they're going to be submitting that. I think the 645 is the one that kind of instigated the zoning amendment.
You're right.
I think they've talked about they're going to ask for a variance if we haven't gone through already.
Variance or a special use permit?
For us, it's just site plan review for VCOD,
Right.
but because they're going to be beyond the maximum front yard setback, because they want to take into consideration that 11-foot the Mass DOT is looking at taking, I don't think they want to necessarily wait through the whole zoning process, and they might just ask for a variance, which I think they have a very good chance of getting, but it also, I think, will help to say, well, we're going to be talking about it. We have an article on annual town meeting to kind of justify, help that moving along. 703 didn't really need it. They were able to push the building back a little bit because the VCOD has a certain criteria that says you need to be at least 30 feet back from Route 28 if you're within 100 feet of the intersection of Parkers River and Route 28, just so that you can keep up that
Right,
viewscape of the river. So that one actually ended up working out okay. So there's a lot of stuff going on March 18th, so it'd be good if everybody could be here. It's very interesting. Everyone's done a good job, so it'll be a success to see everything. And then the select board, we are on the March 10th agenda for the zoning. You'll be happy to know that we will be before the public hearing on the budget and
That's great.
capital.
Good planning.
I said, I'm not doing it if you're putting us at the end. I'll do it on the 24th, but Bob Rittenhour was kind enough, he said, no, put them first, and we can just go in real quick and
Kathy,
talk about
the zoning amendment, I noticed today on Route 20, in fact, I've noticed all week, they're starting to join the 2 parks along 28. That zoning amendment does it cover that part of 28? It does, it covers all of the,
No, it's in the the zoning amendment that's happening at annual town meetings just for the VCOD that has a maximum front yard setback.
okay. So do you think that's going to impact I didn't think so.
No, I don't recall, I haven't looked at it in a while, but I remember looking at it originally going, oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah. Well, I
There's no
think it's-
structures there or anything. It'd just be.
No,
whether
there's
it
no
impacts-
structure, although there is that condo that condo unit right opposite Giardino's. It's got,
It's going to impact them, that berm.
that's what I thought. It's too
Yeah.
bad, because they have beautiful
They
frontage
did a
there.
great job with the berm.
Yeah,
It
beautiful.
looks gorgeous.
So I just feel, it's just so frustrating, because they're putting all this work into that, joining the parks. And isn't that all gonna be disruptive when they do the Route 28 upgrade? Isn't all of what the work they're now, is that all gonna be disrupted?
No, I don't think so,
Think
but
it's
it's
gonna be
worth talking
okay?
to Brittany about.
Okay.
And Nate. I know Nate knows.
Because
about
it looks spectacular. You can really see the water now. They've taken down, it's really gonna be lovely.
been down there
Yeah,
in
it
a
looks,
while.
well, it looks crummy now, but you can clearly see the water. It's gonna make a big difference on that stretch of 28.
Once you
because
get in there, you're surprised that you kind of really feel isolated from Route 28, especially when they're going to have that bridge.
And it's also very quiet once you
much-
get further up.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's gonna be
really-
lovely. It's just,
And it kind of goes down a little bit too,
Yep.
so yep,
Yep.
I agree. So that's all I had for meetings.
Okay. So, may I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second. Nobody else is gonna do it, I will.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.